And here, there's a room up above here that goes each direction. It goes that whole length there.
No, it's just a small platform area. It's not going to run the full length of the unit. So it would just be a lofted area.
So these windows are just open to the unit.
Correct, yeah. So it's providing natural light to them.
So the only platform is right here. At this
No, there's no way anybody can stand and look out the window.
Okay.
No, the height of the restroom area in here would be at 9 feet at the most. So it would be 9 feet off the ground. It's not going to be
And the height.
20 feet off the ground.
And it's just a platform? Or is there a
It
rail around
would
it?
be drywalled and things, but it's not going to be sectioned off from the rest of the unit. It'll be open air to the rest of the unit.
It would be required to have a railing around.
The stairway would have to have a railing.
The railing and
Right.
Correct, yeah. There would be a wall, like a half wall at a minimum, so you couldn't just step off.
Nice place to put a cot.
Be tempered glass, be tempered windows as well,
you
wouldn't it?
can't sleep in that.
Well, yeah.
Wouldn't they be tempered as well?
That would be, I think, up above is tempered glass, yes. We have one at Centennial Crossing that's broken and it's taking forever to get a replacement due to shipping.
What is the height of it? I'm trying to read it, but it's a small.
Yeah, if I can borrow this one. They always make it so small. I believe it's 33 feet. It might be
32 something.
32, yeah.
So small, I didn't even realize it's
I
on.
mean, I'm still concerned about maybe the fire issue, the fumes issue or whatever. I know when you stack them in.
Yeah. And we're happy, I think that from a leasing standpoint to a person with an RV, they would find the vent system very attractive. They would either request it or be happy that it's there.
So you wouldn't have a problem with that as far as.
No, not at all. Alan was happy and thought that it was a great idea to install that. The problem is, I'll just be the devil's advocate here for you. If I can park my RV in there and I can turn it on, I can make sure it's vented out. Now my RV works and everything's turned on, I can just sleep in it. So that was our concern with having that type of system in there, is that you would say, oh, well, now this is all perfectly set up for someone to just.
Well, the reason I even brought that up, even for that, wasn't for the vented part of it. I was talking about would stop somebody from starting that up anyway and sleeping in it.
Well, if it wasn't vented, they would die.
Well, how big is the area?
You don't pull it into a building.
Yeah, you're not gonna run it anyway. You're not gonna need to.
No,
Because you already got a bathroom.
but you already
You
got
got a shovel,
you got
you don't
well,
need-
so,
you don't need it.
whatever, I guess.
All you have to do is plug your RV in. Plug your RV in electrically into the outlet and into the RV, and it's completely energized. It'll run everything.
You don't even have to start it.
You don't have to start.
So what are we discussing here? The fact that it's
Talking about
going
a living,
to become a motel.
exactly, living area inside the.
That's a concern.
I agree. And that's my thought too. It's, and the other thought I have right now is the cupolas at the top have to be included in the height of the building, correct?
Yes, and they are.
They would be, yes.
Yeah, if you look,
Well, if that's 33 to there,
32, yeah, 32.
is it 32? I can't.
I can't read it either.
if you look here on the side, it's 16 to the eaves, 1 foot to the top of the truss, that's 17. You got 6 foot to the cupola up here, that's 22.
I think the line,
How do you read that?
the line
I'm
of
right
the
down
total
there.
height is not too short.
He's
Looking at a different.
Oh, okay.
elevation, yeah.
I thought he had a magnifying glass
Yeah.
over there or something.
He's Superman.
Okay, yeah.
I think you guys are worried about something that's not going to be remotely part of it. There are gang parties out there, I'll have to keep my words, but I just don't see that as being.
I don't see that either. I'm just talking about the residential part as far as protection.
And I hope you're right, but on this lake, there are no RV parks.
Right, but I don't think this.
And for instance, I know in my neighborhood, there's an RV that's parked on the street across from my house. And I'm sure it's because of academy graduation and probably somebody's going to be sleeping in. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, and it's not affecting me, but that happens.
Yeah.
That happens. And this is 28 units. That's a pretty nice sized RV park. You know, that's climate controlled. And I wouldn't be surprised. It's just a possibility, and maybe it's not bad. I don't know. But it is kind of a,
But usually an RV park is not an enclosed.
Right.
That's true.
You know, it's not, it's out open. It's not
Well, I
like
like-
going to Bass Lake State Park and putting our camper. Yeah, I think it's a little bit beyond
I
that.
don't think this is a lake, maybe I'm wrong, I don't feel like it's a lake full of RVs, I feel like it's a lake full of boats. It feels like there's more boats and maybe
I don't-
cars.
I
that
don't
people
think
want.
that's really the issue that we're looking at here though. Honestly, we're looking at whatever might need to be policed after the fact, but if we need to look at as far as not whether we want it because it's gonna be used as that. We've got to look at it as what it's gonna be used as part of the presentation. Am I right?
Right, which.
I mean, are we taking the conversation further? What,
that we
could
really even
happen.
need to, yeah.
I mean,
agree.
do we look at that when we build a house? What could they do later? I mean, I don't think that's our proposal, but I know.
but I think you have neighbors
but
that are
we
going to
have
be
neighbors
concerned about that.
Should be concerned.
This one would like to see a picture.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Here, let me do you.
Yes,
Good.
What I was going to say was, what's the difference, besides from the bathrooms, what's the difference between this and the storage units that are currently in place?
Yeah.
Storage units that are currently in place, and if somebody tried to spend the night there, what would be your process? Do you have, what would your actions be for that storage facility up on Highway 10? What would happen? That might help this conversation along. What would happen there? Same thing here. It's up to the fact they got.
We have visibility, we would send out the local sheriff. If it's in the 2 mile zone, we'd send out
Okay, so
but
this,
we can't see inside of here.
You're locked out.
You can't see.
It's
The
enclosed.
walls, it's all completely enclosed.
there's a stone wall, circles.
No, so there's gonna be a gate there's gonna be a gate at each entrance, but there's not gonna be a fence around the whole thing. There will be landscaped with trees and those types of things for beautification, but there wouldn't be any 8-foot, privacy wall around the whole thing. You'd be able to see it.
So anybody could walk in.
Well, I guess anybody could walk, over the grass into, just like you can walk under your neighbor's yard, yeah.
So,
But you can't walk into the building.
okay, let's, first of all, anybody else from the board have any questions before we open it to the public? Because we need to get
Wait,
the
no,
control.
No, we need to get rolling. I'm
Okay,
good.
questions from the public?
You would not-
Questions or-
You would not be able to walk into a building, it would be locked, each individual building.
Okay.
Jenny?
I have a question, because I do think this issue will hit the council when the annexation thing comes about. Would you be able to do these storage units without the restrooms if they're indeed used for storage? And if it is a lot of lake people storing boats, they can go to the bathroom at their house. There's plenty of other, so I think that I'm posing the question only because I think your council's gonna pose it
Right.
when it comes to the issue of annexation and us bringing sewer and water to the property at an expense to the town, to have these restrooms that appear to be a little bit controversial. Are you all open to just doing it without the restroom?
Well, that's not, my guidance at this point in time is that my client would like to have the restrooms in there. A couple of things on the water and sewer. We will have to have that whether there's bathrooms or not. So as a commercial building, I'm pretty sure it'll have to be sprinkled. So it'll have to have water. And there'll be water spigots and things for people to use to wash their RVs. So there'll be drainage. So whether there's a restroom at the units or not, there would have to be water to it.
You're kind of picturing people working on them on site. That's part of your.
They take the boat out of the way, they get their power washer out, they clean it off.
Come through.
McBride said.
Right, winterize it, put it away. And then the idea behind the shower is not to have, an elaborate walk-in glass shower with a, master bathroom. The idea is to have, I'm all disgusting now from having done all this stuff. I want to hop in, wash off real quick. And then I can get in my car, just not hop in covered in grease and whatever it might be all over. That's the idea. And if you have somebody paying a premium price for an executive storage unit, that's something we could see them wanting to do.
Thank you.
Other questions?
It's commercial, it'll be-
One question, you're calling it a storage unit.
No.
executive, but to me, it sounds like it's a car wash. You can come up and wash your car. It's not a car wash.
Right.
Why can you wash your car? You got a house to wash your car in. There's a car wash in town. There's plenty of places to wash your car. Why you need to store your car plus wash it?
It's a mini warehouse.
Before you answer, can I just have your name?
It's not a
And
storage unit.
Truck
They're not
what's your
storage
address?
units.
over 9 Lincoln Street. I'm the only neighbor that lives next to the place that's
Okay, wait, say it again a little bit slower.
over 9 Lincoln.
Okay, thanks.
On the other contiguous.
Well, yeah, it is.
Uh, My understanding at this point in time is that being able to provide water service, so if someone wants to wash their boat or their RV, they could do that. It's not going to have any more specialized.
Yeah, oh, right, yes.
Brew, car wash or anything like that. It's a service that's offered to a person who owns a unit to be able to do that. There will not be a service that's a person there to do it for them. They can do it themselves or hire somebody else to do it.
But do they need to be able to wash their boat, car, or whatever in each unit? Couldn't there just be one area? This was that huge parking lot around it
What?
that they could wash at. The same as there could be one or two bathrooms spread out
Makes a
instead of
difference.
bathroom that each person can stay there, and they can make it easier to stay there because you have complete facilities.
You know, I don't think, I can understand the idea that the bathroom allows people to stay there, but I can tell you that the small, you store it units have people that sleep in it occasionally. I mean, that happens. So whether there's a bathroom or a light or anything or not, the potential, it's an indoor enclosed space that's out of the wind. So someone could stay there, whether it's bathroom or not. I think that the idea behind the bathroom is offering a service to someone who's paying what they're going to pay to rent these bays as an opportunity to have that as an option.
Are they long-term rentals then, like you would rent it for a year at a time?
Correct.
Okay.
The 12-month lease would be.
So it's not like I could rent it for the weekend kind of thing.
Oh, no, absolutely not. No, there's no intent whatsoever to rent it for a short period of time.
And when I first talked with Al, he said that he was going to sell individual units, and now you're saying it's going to be owned by.
Right. And the thought was to sell the individual units, and as we got into the planning for that, the thought kind of changed because of the difficulties in trying to manage that type of property from a standpoint of HOA dues and all kinds of different things. So rather than go that route, we can lease them and take better control and manage and maintenance over the unit and say, these are our rules, you can lease it or not. And if you want a place to stay, that this isn't their place. The rules say that you can't use it as residence. If someone owned it, you would have your covenants and restrictions, bylaws, but I think you would give a little bit more power to the person who owned it. They would say, hey, it's my property, I own this, I'm a unit owner. And then you end up at an HOA meeting trying to say this person's not doing what they're supposed to be doing, so when you sanction them, it's just not very effective. If they're a tenant and they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, file a petition in Plymouth and you have it.
Okay, one other simple question. Is there anything on the books anywhere that stops Mr. Collins or Mr. Collins' kid when he dies or decides to retire from selling individual units? Or does it have to be one continuous property?
They couldn't sell the units on that property because they couldn't sell the property with the unit. And that's the only way it would be done, but the property would have to be sold off in small sections for the unit, and that wouldn't even, not even possible.
Yeah, there would not be a property interest in buying a unit.
Well, not necessarily
Without
without a
it.
building. I mean,
Yeah.
one storage unit.
It just wouldn't even be feasible.
You would
It
have to,
wouldn't be
you would
possible.
have to go through and file a horizontal property regime and ask for a variance because it's commercial property, so you have to change the zoning requirement. There's 15 or 16 steps to prevent something like that.
And
We'll be back in front of this group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's also a case that in, I don't know, 10 years, you could come back and say, well, we want to change these to be able to live in. That's possible too then.
No,
So
He
just
still has
say
to,
not.
he has to come back here.
still has to come back.
Huh?
You'd have to come back.
They still have to come back.
Yeah, it has to come back to the group, but it doesn't mean that the group's not gonna, well, say the group's gonna change in 10 years, 20 years. So necessarily, it could happen that, they could say,
Right.
yeah, we're gonna change these from commercial to residential and make it so you can live in it.
Lots
All right.
are too small.
I think you're gonna do that no matter what, because you have to present what's applicable at the time that's being presented. You look as far as the future, I mean, may not even be a street there in the future.
Well, yeah, I understand, it, yeah, but I mean,
So, I
just
mean,
because they're not livable now, doesn't mean they're not gonna be livable at some point.
well,
What they're
Okay.
asking us for is a special use.
Yeah, and you set it up. so they
And,
have that.
and what we're going to, if we grant it, will be a special use for this, not to live in. So if they want to do that, they're gonna have to go through a completely different process. You know, and come, it would have to be, probably zoning have to be changed
well,
completely.
commercial
Rather than a special
residential.
use.
special use is to that zoning that it is present. So in any other use that would come up would still have to come back for the change of the special use that's used on that zone. So, I mean, it's still protected as far as what you're looking at. So just to ease of mind.
Other questions? Yes, Brandon.
Brandy Cole, I live at 1223 Hoosier Lane, so I'm pretty close to this property as well. The two entrances, South Main Street before it turns into West Shore, when you come out of my lane or Lincoln, it's like you're getting the curve coming from West Shore. And the cars, you look and there's no car, and then you look and there's another car. And sometimes you can't see the cars coming from the other way either, coming around the curve by the cemetery. I'm just concerned that the entryway being on South Main Street might actually be pretty congested at times. Like, because you would have to stop and do your little fobber and open the executive gate and wait to go in. I'm just wondering if, like, how that works. Can you do the entrance just on Tamarack and the exit? Because on South Main, so it wouldn't be so congested where people are blocked up. And now, these got to be cars around the curve.
Yeah, because that's a Tamarack stops there. This is one,
And that's a weird yield area too. With,
about 150, 130 feet from to the entrance.
The idea that we had for the entrance, and if the requirement was to do some type of distance to make it more amenable, we can have engineering to look at that. But the idea for the larger vehicles is to enter off of the western entrance. So, because then you're gonna have a wider turning radius, you're gonna be turning on Tamarack. So there's a little bit wider, we can design it to have a wider entrance to make that turn. And then as you get in, you'd back your unit in and then you'd be able to drive out. The other would be more for cars, and there'd be room to get off of the road so that you're not sitting on the road trying to open the gate and then.
yeah,
and then
I was just
stopping
thinking
everything.
of that being, especially on a weekend when people are parking their RVs or taking their boats out of the lake, whatnot.
Yeah.
How that could back up just like it does down at the landing.
Right. Our intent would be to tell people, if you're gonna bring your RV in this big giant bus, you need to use that Tamarack entrance because it'll be designed for it.
Other questions? Yes.
I just had a question for exterior lighting. How you gonna light it, so it's not,
Sure.
so it's environmentally friendly. I know what Al does is, top-notch stuff, so it just, I'm not even concerned about it, I just.
What's the light pollution situation like? Sure. And we deal with that on a regular basis when we build apartment style buildings close to residential areas. We just had the situation come up in Bremen that we designed and built 3 apartments right up next to backyards. And that there was 8 people in the meeting asking about that. Why are you gonna shine lights on the parking lot right into my back window? And we worked with the community and we bought special lights that allow us to tilt those down and provide the lumens on the ground when we needed without shining into their back windows. And I guess you just have to take my word for it. We now have satisfied all the neighbors that are along there. So we've dealt with and worked with that issue in the past. And being where it is, and even again, Alan owning one of these, he's not going to want it all lit up either. He's going to want it to be nice and not overly commercialized. So he's going to want that light pointing down and not have the pollution.
One question on the gate. Does it say how far away the gate is from the edge of the road? So if you're pulling in a, 40-foot RV, is that gate gonna be far enough away from the road that they can get all the way in before having to open the gate, or is it?
No, the RV entrance being on Tamarack, the less highly traveled road, you would open it from the road and pull in, and then it would close behind you. The other, the southern entrance would would allow you to pull a vehicle, car off the road, but not a 40-foot.
There's gonna be a traffic jam when people are trying to go in there and the gate's not open, which is gonna cause an issue on some weekends. Because that hill, there's a hill right there from Lincoln towards that way. And unless I cut the grass along the road, I can't see until I'm halfway out in the middle of the road. And if you got an RV or something sitting there, a car or a boat, makes it even harder to see.
I know.
So when I go to pull out and I get hit.
Sure, I guess there's a whole list of terribles that we can commence.
So I mean, can that be designed in that that gate is moved in far enough that you can pull in off the road, then open the gate and not have to stop in the road? Open the gate and then pull in, not stop in the traffic.
Yeah, like I said, I don't think the RVs will be on that road. Just from a,
It's the least thing, and you're gonna be there stopping them. You can pull any side they want.
I guess
And
that's
I'm only going by 30.
I don't think we're gonna have a turning radius on that road to be able to turn 40 foot. That's why we've designed the other entrance. We'll explain that.
Yes, it is.
This is the entrance to bring large vehicles.
That's not gonna have any effect on
Is
this.
there somebody who is not using their brain and tries to pull in that entrance? If you have 8 people trying to get in at once, you can traffic jam. So you're not gonna be able to get all 8 vehicles on. All right. You know, like, those are all logistics I think that would exist no matter what type of
I was
development
worried
is
about
there.
traffic being
Uh,
blocked.
But I see the gated nature of development as a benefit as opposed to attraction.
Buffer is another thing I want to look at too.
For the tenants, I don't know that it'll necessarily, I understand your concern. I just don't know that it'll, on a regular basis, be as heavy of an issue. I think if someone tried to pull an RV in from that direction, they would end up hitting.
Dan, how do we vote on?
You'll pass it around. There's 5 questions.
Oh, this is different?
Yep. It's a special use, so it's 5 different questions. And I just want them to see what the questions are. We have an
Do
answer.
we have a case number?
Yes or no to. Oh, we're not ready to go to it yet, but
No, but I just wonder if we have. a
yeah,
case
we do
number.
have case number.
I don't know what that is.
Now, other questions, comments from the, yeah, let's check. Anybody on that line have any questions or comments?
Hi, my name is Susan Mikesell, and I'm calling, we
What's-
own, it's, the
Go ahead,
last
I'm
name
sorry.
is Susan Mikesell. We own a property just to the east of this property, and I would just echo the concerns of the restrooms. I actually think it's kind of a neat idea, but I do have some concerns with the restrooms and also the traffic that would be on, that could potentially, people already drive too fast on West Shore Drive, but if there's stopped traffic, I would be concerned that there could be some fender benders along West Shore Drive as well. But, and also everyone's kind of touched on all of my concerns. The lighting is also a concern. But it sounds like if we could keep the lighting neighbor friendly, that seemed to would work. But the restrooms really, to me, that's the biggest concern.
And your concern is just the fact that the restroom is there and what?
Just the same,
Good
that
idea.
it could invite overnighting or, excess capacity of a lake house. If everyone's there for the weekend and let's send the teenagers over to the storage barn to sleep because we don't have enough room for the teen, you know what I mean? That's my concern with the restroom. I just feel like it sort of invites people to maybe push the rules a little, to bend the rules for them, That's all, but thank you. But everyone else has already kind of brought up all of our concerns as well, so thanks.
Okay, thanks for calling, for joining us. Other questions? Comments? Any other questions from the board?
I have one more, as far as anything looked at as far as any kind of buffering, blocking, because the the only seat area right there as far as anybody living, whatever, as far as any further development from that, I mean, residential.
Sure. And we were able to sit down with the Luttrells and kind of talk about what's currently on their property line and building in some tree line there to make sure to block off any light or sound, or, you know, try and reduce that down to some degree. We'll work with, if approved, we work with them to be able to do that. And as well as the farm that's to the west there. I mean, obviously, we don't want to fill up those retention areas with vegetation or trees, but, you know, we would be good neighbors in trying to line that with some type of tree so that you're not just looking at the back of, it'll be a very nice commercial building, but the back of a building. So,
But you would be required under this, I mean, by doing that for a buffer, because it is separate as zone from.
sure, and that, yeah, that's not.
And I just want to make sure that that's in that plan as far as what we're covering.
And we'd have to submit.
Right, I mean, I know that's going to be looked at, but I just want
Yeah.
to bring that question up at this point, because we're talking about everything else.
What, that property is presently zoned one. C2.
It's been C2 for a long time.
That's where DJs.
Jays used to be there.
DJs, you remember DJs?
Did they get a special permit? Is that how they were
No,
there?
actually, it was C2. I don't think, I don't even know a special permit. Use permit was even permitted back then. That's been, we're talking.
Oh, I know, it's been
30 years ago.
At least
So originally was only where DJ's went commercial, residential.
I'm sorry.
The corner where DJ's used to sit was commercial only.
That's the only one that's ever
That
been.
part was commercial. The rest of it was all residential, farm field, whatever.
Right.
At some point, it was changed to all being commercial.
Good enough.
That's right there. Go to 1-4B.
Are we ready for finding of facts?
There's a total of 7 buildings, correct? What's that? I'm sorry?
How are they going to be silly?
There's 3 that are on West Shore and then 3 that are opposite that. So towards the south, and then 1 that's backs up to eventually the lake. So faces east, or the rear faces east, the front faces west.
Do you want to show her this?
Sure.
So there'll be 3 facing your field, 3 facing the side, right? 1 facing lake.
This is the Luttrell's property. Your property. So this is where we get the tree line. This is water retention, so won't be any water coming over here.
So you come in, you go in the base that way?
It's correct. So this is
So
So you
all.
see the back.
There's a difference between a
You won't
storage unit and a mini warehouse, I'm assuming.
you see the lake.
The way they want to compare, but what, it should be specified somewhere along this line here, because that's what they're asking for.
Yeah.
Very used for a mini warehouse.
Take it.
I mean,
So, do you want this back or just?
Just, we have a question. This was asking for a mini warehouse. What's the difference between a mini warehouse and a storage unit? Is there a difference? Is it the same thing?
Planning commission guys have to tell you that.
I think guys asking the question at the same
You guys
time.
don't know that.
This was in definition before me. And we've never dealt with it because it's never came up with, but I know with being a mini warehouse, is there any stipulations that makes it? Because I mean, I'm got the same concerns as some of the people that's brought that up, you know, as far as what's the difference between a storage unit that could be used same as a mini warehouse. But I know if we're asking for special use for a mini warehouse, I just want to make sure there's other guidelines that goes with that definition.
Well, I think that's a very good question.
Um,
Okay, here's our definition of mini warehouse. It's on page 235. Structure on a permanent foundation which individually securable and accessible spaces are rented primarily for the temporary storage of personal property by individual owners.
So it's the same as a storage unit, basically. So,
Yeah.
okay.
So it's a mini warehouse, they have to have individual owners with what they're
The
storing or
owners
individual.
refers to the property, the personal property. That, because I thought the same thing, and when it says owners, it doesn't mean owners of the unit, it's owners of the property.
That's the reason I said that. We're talking about what they're actually storing or what they're actually.
Otherwise, you wouldn't have any storage unit.
So you're on
But-
page 235.
But a storage unit is it considered the same thing? Because they don't own the property either and they're storing.
We don't have a definition of a storage unit.
I mean, is there any difference between the definition?
I don't think so.
From what I would
We're
interpret?
not, in this,
And I know,
we don't have any
that's what I'm
difference.
saying. We don't have that difference as far as other than interpretation, which is open for public interpretation as well as ours, is what I'm saying.
I would argue that the request for special use, as we've outlined it, fits within that definition.
Right. Yeah, I read it again.
Okay. Other questions, comments? We do have 5 questions for special use. And remember, if you vote no on any of the 5 questions, you must vote no on the variance. I think my biggest question right now is I would kind of like to see what you guys are going to put when you rent it out as far as saying this is not to be used as a overnight stay place, either in your RV or in the unit itself. And it's not a place to have a party.
Correct, yes. That's why I did my research into what other storage facilities have within their language. And again, the difficulty you have is you're not allowed to stay overnight, or you're not allowed to sleep in the unit. How the difficulty you have in policing or managing or defining that. So what we would say is, like all the other contracts that I looked at for storage units, is it's not to be used for residential purposes. Now, our idea of not being used for residential purposes is you're not to live there. You're not to live there for any period of time. But I can't say that you would say you're not allowed to sleep there, or you're not allowed to stay overnight, because what if someone, again, works seconds, they stay up overnight and they're not sleeping there, they're allowed to be there. So that's where we get into the difficulties of saying overnight, what does that mean? How do we police that? We would follow the same rules and regulations that all of the other storage facilities say, which is you're not allowed to use this as a personal residence. That's the language that I found in all the others. I even called to see if I could get a copy of the contract from the storage place up here, and they wouldn't send one because they were full. So I just wanted to see what their contract said, because I could see saying, well, if that's their rule, then you have to follow that.
I know you don't have any units like this any place. Are you aware of other units like this that we could at least get some information from?
I'm happy to provide the board with some information on that. At this point in time, I don't have any facilities that I understand that are like this. I think a lot of the facilities would be more like marina type facilities where someone could bring and store for a long period of time, and they offer all kinds of services and maintenance and things. But as far as I know, I don't know of anything. I don't know if people who own RVs probably have a lot more detail on that, so we could ask them, see if they have some.
And my biggest concern is not the storage of them and not the cleaning of them. It's the misuse of the facility I mean, because honestly, I could see somebody having, oh, come on up, we got a big place, we'll take the RV out. You can have 50 people in there. We got a bathroom there, lots of room to, and I could see that happening. Because there's not a whole lot of places to have big parties here in town. But maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe it wouldn't be a problem.
You just said that you didn't have a definition for storage barn, but you did for mini warehouse. Why don't you add that to the definition of not overnight lodging in a storage, it's not allowed on a storage unit or a mini warehouse. Why don't you add that to the definition?
We can add it to the special use. Or is that
to
as
the
part of the
definition
mini
of
hit?
what a storage unit
The
is.
planning commission could do that, but what potentially we could do is we could make it,
Yeah,
I think that the policing arm, the best policing arm for that is the owner of the property and
Exactly.
enforcing the lease agreement that says
that's what I
Again,
was just getting ready to say.
Yeah.
that there would be a incumbent upon Beachview Properties as the owner to not allow these to be used as residences.
And that
that's-
can be
100%.
amended for the special use as far as adding to it. Stipulation for the special use that this is not allowed.
And if the language were as a personal residence, we would not have an issue with that. If it said you're not allowed to be there overnight, that I think would be a restriction that would be somewhat of a poison pill because it's overly restrictive on the use of the property by
Somebody comes in 11 o'clock at night and they bring it in there and they're gonna be,
So maybe they're coming into town and they don't get here till late. It's midnight, 1 o'clock, and they want to park it in there, but they can't because the restriction says you can't be there overnight,
What about doing some kind of contingency where it's not to be used as, as a residence or as, place
Guest
of
housing.
parties or, however you want to define that.
Right. Certainly not guest housing.
You get housing or parties or something like that.
Yeah.
Put that in
I mean, the only other option we got is responsibility falling upon the owner. I mean, just what he said. I mean,
Well,
if,
And I can tell you that the last thing that the property owner wants is somebody out there tearing it up.
right,
It's not going to do us any good to have a really nice property that's torn all to hell because there's been a party central for 2 years. And now it's all beat up. That's not going to do anybody any good. So,
right, but there's no way, I mean, if you're gonna put something that's allowed, that is, the concern is with who's gonna stay or if they stay, or maybe they won't.
right.
But I mean, if we put this in the special use, it still is gonna have to be policed by somebody, which, I mean, we're gonna depend on the owner, or we're gonna have to assign somebody from the town. I mean, it's not gonna be a feasible process for us to say one way or the other. But if it was the responsibility of the owner, I mean, as far as stipulation of putting that in, is he gonna provide some way of knowing that this is not gonna happen?
I can't. There's a rule that
I'm throwing it
says,
out there.
yeah, there's a rule that says that you can't cook commercial food in a personal kitchen. And someone asked me one time, well, can you guarantee me that that won't happen? I said, they can't guarantee you that at Cafe Max. I can't guarantee you that at McDonald's. Like, that they don't give them hamburgers to take home and cook. I can't guarantee it. That it won't ever happen. It's impossible.
Right.
Can't guarantee
What
that. What I can say
separates
is
the
we
two?
would do everything you could. Again, from a standpoint of building rental homes or residences, these aren't very good residences or rental
Oh,
homes.
I wouldn't stay there.
And we would build, if that was the intent, we would build them. So we're happy to say that they won't be used as personal residences, but any other language gets real bogged down and difficult for us to try and really get it
Right.
narrowed.
Mr. President,
Yes,
simple question. Do you have enough information?
I don't. And the reason, and I'm sitting here thinking, I would like to know distance. The question that came up, how far the gate is from the road, or can an RV pull in to the gate, get out and open it, or are they gonna have to be sticking in the road to do that on either road, either Tamarack or West Shore Drive? And I would like to see some kind of language that is going to be in the lease for these people to
Way the-
try to keep this as orderly as possible. And
Sure,
not.
so like, you would like to see some
think
type
you gotta
of
see it.
draft lease.
Yeah.
For a tenant.
And I would also like to ask the people who are neighbors to this facility, what's your biggest concerns? And maybe, and I know we've got 4 of you here. What are your concerns?
What you gonna do, like, one thing.
So really, it's not a party, well, yeah, thin it out. But I think you talked about building trees and stuff, so and, some kind of restriction so they wouldn't be out there.
Well, like you.
Well, that's the buffer thing, that stuff.
The cemetery? Yeah. Yeah.
Rich, did you have any?
He was going in, huh?
Concerns are, it's set up that people can live there, no matter what you do, people are gonna live there.
Anytime you put a roof on
No
anything.
matter what you say, people will figure out a way to live in there.
Then they'll be evicted.
If you catch them, is the biggie.
Well, people usually.
And there's gonna be a traffic problem on some weekends.
Again, I understand your concerns. I would say the benefits to the community outweigh those concerns.
I think the
I think
distance,
they're valid. I just think that
I think that the distance from the gate to the road is very important. If it will accommodate a vehicle pulling a boat or an RV, is it far enough back that they can pull in, get off the road to open the gate? If they have to get
I'm
out
all
or
for,
whatever.
and I'm all for trying to do whatever we can with this property to make it work for both issues. But I would say that no matter what we do with this, the dangers of vehicles pulling boats and things are gonna be present on the lake. They'll be there afterwards.
And if you can find out if there's another unit or similar to this someplace that we could possibly bounce some things off of to find out. I mean, I hate to be oh yeah, Culver did this, and we're the ones going to be bouncing.
We can be the bright shining star.
Yeah, exactly. Or,
They may not live there, but people are gonna start having parties there at some point. Whether it's gonna be teenagers or adults. Someone's gonna start having a party at the big parking lot you got there. I don't care what you do.
Or inside their units. I mean,
Yeah.
you go to, I've been to airplane hangars.
Yeah.
With Brian, I mean, you put the music up, you have your little chairs, you put your chair out, you're tinkering with your car or your airplane, your RV, whatever. You're gonna have people congregating. Now you have music. This is a really quiet little neighborhood.
Yeah.
Lincoln and Hoosier Lane. It's just very quiet. We just have deer going through there and it's not commercial.
No, and I might remind you, I know it is on that, and it's at that point right now, you can't change in the middle, the water's already flowing in one direction. But, as far as the noise, I just want to add just one thing, because I know we're talking about your concerns, and one of my concerns would be the noise. And the town does have a noise ordinance. And I would suggest to use it. The neighbors especially, it's your house. You hear it over there, I know where you're at, and if the noise ever gets where it bothers you, then it's bothering somebody else before it bothers you, and it just takes a phone call. And once it starts being an issue, then I'm sure that Alan's gonna be, might be correcting that issue, because it's gonna have to be something changed.
I think we're to the point where we would probably going to table this and ask you to come back for some information.
Sure.
And we will put it on the June meeting.
What, are you asking for any more information, him bring, or?
Yeah.
He made it. Is there anything that I did not bring up that other people want to say,
Yeah.
talk about?
And I would,
Yep, I got that distance from the road for the RVs, any similar developments, limited gathering numbers. And again, I've just got my directive from my client, so there's not anything that I can agree to other than what he's given,
Right.
they've given me as a outline. So if there was something I could agree to, I would, but I can't go any further than that. What's the date of the June meeting?
Third Thursday in June, whatever that is. Sorry.
Mark it
it's on
down.
the calendar.
Always.
17th.
7th,
No,
there you go.
this is
June 17th.
2021.
She will be here.
Dan,
I don't think I put that down, but anyway.
Dan, it's just something else. I mean, these are the 5 issues we've got to look at. And I know several of them hadn't really been directed.
Right, I agree.
As far as the
Yeah, the five questions that we have to answer are, and this is they're different than the other ones. The special exception will not endanger the public health, safety, morals, comfort, or general welfare. 2, the special exemption will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the vicinity, nor diminish and impair and impair property values within the neighborhood. 3, that the special exemption will not impede the normal and orderly and improvement of the surrounding properties for uses permitted in the district. 4, that adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and other necessary facilities have been or are being provided. And 5, that ingress and egress points are so designed as to minimize traffic congestion in the public streets. And if we vote no on any of those,
Sure.
we have to vote no on the variance.
Do you have a blank one of those? You can take those.
Yeah, I figured I could.
And I wanted to everybody here, just so you know, concerns is what we really want to hear for or against. Because, I mean, something like this.
And I would, as we table the issue, I would invite anybody to, feel free to contact us. I mean, I can give you my phone number, at the office, if you want to contact me. The best way for us to handle some of these issues or these questions is not as I stand here trying to figure them out, standing up. So we invite you to come and sit down and talk with us around the table, bring up the issues, that way we can solve them, because I'm in here trying to answer them and trying to be an ambush, and not in the best interest of the entire plot. So that won't be good to go. Commercial property that's beneficial.
I thank you very much,
Yes,
and
thank you.
we'll see you next month.
Back next month.
You need a break? Anybody? Quick break?
I would like to take a quick break, if you don't mind. You know, I don't miss them either. I don't know if we get out of it, I will. Against this break, I take it.
We need something like that.
That's the reason I no longer work.
Because there's a property there.
So I never even look at.
I did not want to
there.
property.
Time to go to bed.
Yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to, that's our number. Yeah.
I'm laughing because you're gonna take like 2 seconds. to get to the variance.
Yeah. It was just proximity.
Life is not fair sometimes, mister.
But life is good.
Life is good.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
I think they're gonna do this for us. Nice job.
Okay.
I got a question since we're kind of on
Yes.
a break. There has been a big request for this sort of a thing, and I have not talked to Al about it in 10 years, but it probably will become something that will happen more often. We already have RVs stored in units like it. Doesn't always have boats and RVs stored up there? Is the concern because it's in town and that's it, or, but I fully believe that they would be renting them out for the academy graduations and such, and public school graduations, if one of the locals, rents one.
But they have to be,
They have
I
to be,
think,
they're gonna be under a year contract. It's not gonna be like for weekends and stuff. So they'd have to go to somebody and say, can I party in your, next to your Mercedes that's parked in this high-end storage? And I just don't think that would happen. I just
No,
don't.
it's the people who rent it for a year. And so, I'm just saying, I think it's a great idea to have a facility, but I can see your concerns. Why don't we put some language in to protect your concerns down the road? Because it will be coming again and again and again. I mean.
Yeah, we asked him to get some leasing language for us, so that's what he's gonna work on.
Yeah, but
the fact that it's a facility that is climate controlled and that it's got a bathroom
Yeah.
facility
I
and
agree.
a sink facility. That's what concerns me, that that's inviting that to happen.
I agree. I think it is. But when you're wanting to see a lease, what does seeing a lease do this year? What about next year's lease, a lease down the road? Does seeing a lease now really protect you? I just want to remind you of what happened with the code. The town rezoned the property for the code because we were going to get all this transient traffic in. The code was built after I bought the cafe, and it really did make a huge difference. But we rezoned that land, and we even gave them the end of Jefferson Street, which used to belong to the town, for that project. And now the town didn't put anything in place to protect it down the road. Now there's about 10 of those units that rent. We lost all that transit traffic. So what we did, because it was going to be so great for the community, was great, but we didn't put it in writing. We didn't protect it. Hopefully we've learned from that. And hopefully we'll learn because of this project that's coming up. I think it's great. But
I've
is there really
heard
more
that
that's
story so many times, and I've
How
never
did it-
pursued it to know how it happened, but apparently when the code was put up, you were not to live there year round. You were supposed to rent, or supposed to be.
There were so
rental
many,
units, there
so
was a
many
lot.
units had to be
Yeah.
supposedly,
And then something changed, but nobody knows how or why.
well,
we didn't put it in writing, and the 80 units, you were only supposed to be able to stay in it yourself as an owner 2 weeks a year. And there was one woman who was an older woman, and they allowed her to not be in the program, and that started it. So what, again, was we didn't put it in place. We, the town, didn't protect them. Right.
right.
So learn from our mistakes.
And we have, we weren't there, but we have, because I know that was a PUD, that was the first PUD that Culver initiated. And due to not probably knowing exactly what they wanted to do as a PUD, there was a lot of things missed. And you're
Okay,
correct.
Let's move on.
Yeah, let's go.
Next petition is 2021-015B. Brandy Poole. Brandy, you want to come on up or sit from there, however you want to do it. This is for the Max Playhouse.
Yes, so we would like to do a 12 by 24 foot addition onto unit 1 of the now duplex. Used to be a triplex. So that's our preschool side. And wanting to do it in the rear, but we're asking for a variance because to a 10.5 foot rear setback instead of the 25 foot rear setback.
What did you say? These are the little kids? What did you?
It's our preschool age.
Okay.
It's
Can
a
I,
smaller unit. It's out of the 2 units, this one is smaller. And so once it was all finished, and by the time we had the kitchen cabinets in and storage, you know, shelves
this,
and everything.
you're talking about the red part here, is
Yes,
that
the
correct?
red part. And I'm looking at.
What's the two other extension? I mean,
Could that be put,
this way.
turn it?
So there's 3 reasons I don't want to turn it. One, the back of the building, so this is just half of the building, but this is the preschool half. This door here is actually a mechanical room that you can only access from the back of the building. And from here over is the preschool side.
Okay.
So if we put it sideways, then now that mechanical room is inside the preschool room. So, I mean, I've had Quality Comfort out 3 times this year. They don't have to, you know, come in the middle of the day into our classrooms. They just go in the back. So I don't want to block that. The other reason is firewall, because I'm a multi-child care. If I put it up against the building, that's going to be more expensive with a firewall to the where it's going to go if it were to go across the second unit. And the third reason is because I've already had an L-shaped classroom at my center on State Road 10, and it's just not conducive for learning. The way that this addition is proposed right now, it's line of sight all the way from the front door all the way to the back of the building. If we turn it and most of the classroom space is to the right, then if the teacher's up front in the, you know, you can't see what's going on over there. So it's, you know, these kids are all in the same area the whole time with the teacher. it's better to have a rectangle or a square classroom.
Makes perfect sense.
But you're talking about putting it right on the end of the house where you got from the corner over to your maintenance building,
Yes.
and it comes.
And then the
straight.
maintenance store is basically separates the two units and it kind of juts out a little bit. And, you know, the second unit is much larger, that side, unit 2, with all the windows and everything. Another reason we want the addition is to bring in the natural light where we don't have a lot of windows on that side of the duplex. And so the addition's gonna have 13 windows. It's really to be more like a 4-season room. So when you're in the front of the building, you look back, you just see all windows and the trees. Bring some natural light in and some nature for the kids.
And what you were talking about, the L shape as far as coming across.
If we were to turn it and not have to deal with the variance, that would create an L-shaped classroom.
And you would talk about the L shape being after that and then coming back past the door or.
Yeah, like, because I need at least 260 square feet.
Yeah.
To be able to take my additional 6 children. So this is why it's as big as it is. So if I were to turn it this way,
Yeah.
now you'd be in front, this is the second unit, and then we'd have to create a firewall.
Okay, because I didn't know if you would came out here and then you came out here with your building, leave the access to your maintenance room.
It would cover the maintenance room.
But you had the hallway between.
If I did the addition on this side of the building, you mean?
No, I'm saying, here's your door, right?
The door is like right next to,
Right here.
yeah, like right next to
And
the
so
addition.
if you built it this way, whatever.
Then
you would leave
then
those
here's
up.
the teacher over here and here's
Okay,
the
so
kids back
that
here.
was my question.
Yeah.
Because I mean, this is just a continuance of that room.
Mhm.
Okay, now that makes sense.
Yeah,
And we're looking at addition, but I just want to make sure that,
nope, it's just,
okay,
the back window is gonna be removed
That
and then
makes
it'll be a
perfect
dust
sense.
doorway and it's just.
that was where
My
I was.
first thought was, why not turn it the other way?
Yeah.
Right.
She's answered all this.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, I didn't realize
Yeah.
that this was part of the same class, and the addition is an addition to an
Yep, it
original.
just opens up
more,
all from one end of the room all the way to the other, you can see.
Making a
right down.
bigger classroom,
Mhm.
not an extra class.
Yes, bigger classroom.
Randy, will you put any fencing back there or anything? I'm not sure where your kids play.
The kids will still play in their normal playground. It'll actually remove some of our fencing because the side of the building will become the fence where we have kind of a temporary fence, right? I mean, we have a fence, it's just not a great.
But there's a tree line, isn't there a tree line?
Right here.
There's
Right there.
trees in
Right,
between the back
That-
property and mine.
right.
And it's also a hill.
Mostly weeds.
And it's a hill.
Little weedy bushes and stuff, but
Or valley.
yeah,
No.
yeah.
Um,
And then
Are you
the
guys-
side setback is normal. We don't need a variance for that, it's just the rear.
are you guys going to, turn this into one lot at some point?
You mean 454 School Street and 450?
Right, the two buildings make it one.
I'd like to do that.
Now, the buildings
not
are
too hard
not
to do.
connected,
No,
correct?
we just have a fence connecting the two buildings right now, which creates
If
our
they
playground.
made it 2 lots, would we be in trouble? Out of trouble?
One lot.
Because it's,
Make
I
it
mean,
into
one lot, it's 2 lots now.
That was discussed at one time.
I'm just looking it up right now.
Okay,
Because I know when you first came in for this, it was asked, or something, there was a question brought up about the 2 lots being combined,
Mhm.
but I don't remember.
But I think I was told I didn't have to combine the 2 lots at that time.
Right.
how's the parking and all been with?
It's been okay this year, but the school is very different. So only 3
Right.
grades drop off at the front and then the others drop off on the side. So I don't know what's gonna happen if they go back to normal.
Well, just so you know, school has asked if they could extend the driveway and interrupt farther,
Oh,
so they can get more cars off the road and
oh, that's good.
take care of it that way. So,
Except that then that's more parking that I can't have across the street
well,
on a one-way.
no, they would put the driveway inside their property, so you could still park on School Street.
Okay,
We're just discussing that.
yeah, because you see that I have cars parked there because
Yeah.
we have no way to park the other way to get our kids out.
Right.
during the one way.
But they're talking about extending what they've got
Yeah.
in their own property. Going on up to college, coming in that way.
So then then if my parents parked there, they would get trapped in their driveway as cars started driving through.
No, it's where that little pull-in is right in front of the school. They're saying
Yeah.
that they'd extend that, so it wouldn't even be on on
Wouldn't
their
take up any
property,
street, wouldn't take anything up the street.
in front of the
But
elementary school.
You gotta
Yeah.
realize it's not a
I think what she's
one-way
questioning,
street.
But I have parents that park right there on that side of the street, across School Street.
right there on the corner
Not my,
of
yeah.
college and
You
school.
can still pull out. from
They
there
pull on-
easily.
they're on
They have to
college.
park there and then cross over the street when
Right.
it's a one-way, because they can't get
They
down
can't
the street
come from-
on my
yeah,
side.
can't
of
come from
on the
Lakeshore.
north
They
side.
come the other way.
Yeah,
So they
they
have to
can't
cross
go
the
up
street, they
north
have to park there.
during certain times when everybody's.
If our.
But you can turn out from college and go north.
It wouldn't
or
affect
from-
that at all, right? It's not even on the street. So it wouldn't
whatever.
affect that.
It would be in there
Or
where the
better.
grass is right now?
Yes.
The streets up there, you can't turn to the north.
Okay,
She's-
questions? Any comments? Yes, there's,
Yes, I just wanted to ask a couple of questions. I represent the board who owns the property next door, you know that. It's a mini subdivision.
Wait, Susie, stop, just,
Oh,
what did
Susie.
you say? No, I know who you,
Okay,
wait, who did you say you represented? Sorry.
Cord Associates, they're the ones that own the property next door.
Okay, thanks.
And we
which,
just-
when you say next door, which
The
direction?
3 lots, on the
East of,
south of
South
her
side.
property, south of her property.
Okay.
Big grassy area.
okay,
Yeah.
So you know where the RV parks? In the driveway, the RV parks in the driveway. We own, well, my client owns the property from there over to hers.
So that's,
Yeah.
We combined two parcels when we created that mini subdivision. Anyways, so I wanted to make sure that, just a couple questions, the side yard is you said you wouldn't need a variance now. Is the current building 10 foot off the side property line?
The current duplex, you mean?
Yes.
Off of, from yours?
Yes,
I don't know, I
No,
can't
no.
tell on that.
No,
because if
it
you're.
doesn't look like it.
Because if you're extending it and it's not 10 feet, then you would need a variance. That's what I just wanted to make sure about.
But it's on the opposite side, it's the
it's on the north side.
it's
Yeah,
on the
it's
north
on the
side of
side
the
of
building.
bumps up to my other property.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So this is your property. This is-
Okay.
Yeah,
So over here's not over here.
yeah,
Okay, so
Yeah.
but I haven't seen where, I just heard it was off the back.
yeah, there's the preschool.
Okay, so not a
Yeah,
concern.
and that's the bigger side, so I have to worry about that.
Okay, then the other question is, water retention. Because the property does kind of slope toward the mini subdivision, we won't have an issue, will the water be maintained on?
I don't believe we're gonna have an issue. It's gonna be on a gravel pad. And we'll have gutters like we do now.
Right, but will the gutters go on our property, create a water issue? I just want to be sure about that.
Would-
That water retention.
We'll
would
do
be-
Would it increase any more than what it already?
Yeah, I mean, no, I don't think your property has
Yeah,
much.
I'm just saying. how
If
much more
anything, it'd
would
be
it-
the pole barn behind us that would have more.
Well, if you flood them, I'm okay with
Yeah,
that.
I'm not saying I plan on flooding them, but I also can't really help where their property's built. I mean, it's a marsh down
And who owns that's SiAx on it?
there.
It used to be, I thought.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's literally like the lowest property in Culver and they put a pole barn with their expensive cars there, so.
But if they didn't come to speak,
Yeah,
then let's not be too concerned. That was really.
yeah,
it.
so I'm not near near that
Okay, it was just
side
like
yard.
any water runoff, if any water runoff was increased, that was a concern. And how are the guys going to get to it for construction? Are they just gonna go through your property or are they going to be coming onto our property?
So it is because of the nature of it being childcare. And I don't want to have people constructing on site. It's already been, it's a like, I don't know, modern tiny home. It's already being done like in a warehouse and then they're going to crane it in.
Oh,
From our front yard or our playground
So
area.
it's like a prefab.
Prefab.
Yeah.
Okay, she's addressed the issues, as long as there's no excessive water and is not creating an issue, because it does slope.
Good point, too, especially with the area that, I mean, glad you brought it up.
Any other questions from the audience? Anybody have any questions from online? If not, we'll move to finding of facts. Is everybody still online? Hello.
Yeah, like that. 6 people.
Really?
Your yard setback. Setback.
5 now.
And you could also, if you feel more confident, you could have them relocate, they don't mistake it, but there's no, they come out and just retry it. But if you have a metal.
Something significant. My daughter's having a problem right now too.
And don't get some living in this on the GIS.
10-5, 20.
Rear yard setback.
Right, setback 25 to
You can have it.
2.5 inches, not 10.5.
10 feet.
Yes, obviously, they just.
Exactly. I mean, more than that.
Okay, everybody ready?
Go.
Based on the evidence submitted, I find that number one, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. Mr. Osborne.
Yes.
Mr. McManaway.
Yes.
Ms. Marshall.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Two, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property, including the variance, will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. Mr. Osborne.
Yes.
Mr. McManaway.
Yes.
Ms. Marshall.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Number three, the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in use of the property. Mr. Osborne.
Yes.
Mr. McManaway.
Yes.
Ms. Marshall.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Yeah.
Looks like yes. I'll go, yeah.
I would entertain a motion that we approve this variance.
So moved.
Moved and properly second, we approve this variance. Any further discussion? How do you vote on the variance, Mr. Osborne?
Yes.
Mr. McManaway?
Yeah.
Ms. Marshall?
Yes.
And the chair votes yeah. We're getting slap happy, guys.
And we are being recorded, right?
Yeah.
By going to the mini warehouse.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to the warehouse and spend the
I
night.
mean, county, that was just a variance, right?
So I did not get that.
Now you can go online.
You went?
I don't think people are recording there.
Oh.
I think that's crazy.
I tell you
How
what,
are they gonna cash flow that place? He's gonna spend $2 million. How much you gonna charge him?
it's up to him.
Well, I don't know.
Well, you know.
That's why we need to- Okay, let's move on to,
Sure.
Have we got another one?
well, one more.
I don't have that one either, probably.
2021-016B, Robert Schmidt.
Hi, Ian.
I don't have that one either.
I'm here to ask for a variance that was previously pre-approved in August of 2019, as we talked about under old business at the April meeting. That being that the time elapsed because of COVID, And the attorney so eloquently stated that I needed to reappear and reapply. So I'm here tonight reappearing and reapplying for something that was previously approved unanimously. I can't even speak anymore. It's too late. Yeah, I just, it was approved. But anyway, so I brought very similar documentation as I presented last time. You know, it's 2 of the posts that are at the new house that are going to be roughly 15 feet and 20 feet to the lakeside. And it's pretty much going to look, well, it's going to be the same post as the non-lakeside that we finished. So this is a continuation of our overall project that we've been ongoing for a couple of years now. So.
Questions of Mr. Schmidt?
No, no questions.
And I think all 4 of us were on that board.
Yeah.
We were the people who told him yes.
So that would go to finding the facts.
Have you changed your mind?
No.
Anybody in the audience or online? Nobody online? Okay.
This might be the quickest one we've ever done. And you've had to wait the longest.
Yeah, I had to wait all night for this.
Good things.
We could have started out with him thinking that we're gonna get through the night quicker.
That. We would have been spending.
Get that there. Go see it. Come on. You're the one that forgot yours.
I know, you're right.
61D.
Russ got tired.
I'm sorry.
Russ got tired.
That word, we all said, okay.
Easy on him.
You have it now.
Okay, everybody ready? Based upon the evidence submitted, I find that number 1, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. Mr. Osborne,
Yes.
Mr. McManaway,
Yes.
Ms. Marshall, correct?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property, including the variance, will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. Mr. Osborne.
Yes.
Mr. McManaway,
Yes.
Ms. Marshall,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Number 3, the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in use of the property. Mr. Osborne,
Yes.
Mr. McManaway,
Yes.
Ms. Marshall,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Entertain a motion that we approve this variance.
I make a motion.
Did you want to take a look?
I'll second,
I-
once again.
Okay.
Been moved and properly seconded that we approve the variance. How do you vote on the variance?
Yes.
Mr. Osborne,
Yes.
Mr. McManaway. I haven't even asked you yet. Ms. Marshall,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry things didn't work out, but I guess due to COVID,
Yeah, well, we're back on track.
Yeah,
There you go.
exactly.
Have a good evening.
All right,
You
thanks, you too, Rob.
Old business.
And
Couldn't you wait until,
yeah, he said we can talk about this a little
couldn't you
bit.
wait until like August?
Did I wait until August? I don't know. This is Kim Cook. This is the old marina on West Shore.
All right.
And last time I met with you, you said, go find the grant of easement.
You did?
So
Right.
we can do it. I spent forever, but I found the grant of easement. And the easements basically gives them an easement over all of the adjoining property. I was surprised with that one.
What?
Wow.
Yes. Usually an easement says over 15 feet or 15 feet wide.
Right,
or-
that's why I was
or
asking.
stuff that said- This one says, commonly referred to as the lake park. Gives an easement to use said lake park lots for the purpose of ingress and egress from and to West Shore Drive.
Where are you?
I'm about 5 or 6 lines down on the first
Oh,
page.
first page.
Yeah. Now, over and above that, I know you guys are ready to go home and so are we, but I went to, back to our designer because you kind of wondered whether or not we could get a driveway into our own lot. And he said, you go talk to county. And I went and talked to the same person that Chuck talked to this afternoon. And he says, you guys would be making the worst mess you've ever made in your life because you got a retaining wall in there and it runs all that water down the side of the road. And if you cut that retaining wall, then you're going to basically dump all that road runoff on yourself. And
Did we let you run a driveway in there?
well, we talked about it.
Oh,
We
okay.
talked about it. He said, could there be a driveway in your own property? And to be
Oh,
honest with you,
Gotcha. Without the easement thing.
yeah,
Right,
without the
okay.
easement thing. And so practically speaking, no, it's very difficult to do that. And then we talked about some other issues, traffic and such. And the way we would resolve that, we would propose that to the park people, we just put an electric gate in there. And then they could key it, we could key it, there'd be no problem there at all. And so
Yeah, that's the issue I remember more.
Yeah.
What the people asked about how the gate would work?
yeah, how the
Yeah.
gate would work and the way we
Yeah.
handle that, we just install electric gate. That would be no problem. So with all that said, knowing that you guys want to go home as well as we do, is there any way that we can move forward on this project in some fashion that would be palatable to the board? I'm going back to David Kaiser, and he's got us to basically 18 feet off the edge of the road now, which is significantly more than anybody south of him. I mean, Mr. Craig is what, probably 2 feet, is that what he is?
I think you're being generous.
Yeah.
2 feet.
Yeah, maybe 1.5 or something like that, and everything south of him is that way. That doesn't make it right,
Right,
but we're just trying to make this
Right.
project palatable.
Yeah.
Going to the north, they're quite a bit narrower, except for one. One is deep in about 56 feet. But other than that, the 6 or 7 in the north would all be 18 feet or less. And we're pulling back 15 feet from the lake side, which is significantly more than Mr. Craig and his friends. So we're wondering whether or not that's palatable to you. The other thing I talked to David about, he wasn't real excited about it, but he said, ask the board, just ask him before I draw it. If you notice, he laid us out with a 20-foot setback on the north side. The ordinance only requires a 10-foot setback. But the reason he went 20 is because if you look at the old house on the next lot to the north, it's practically on the property line. So by drawing it this way, we get our 20-foot clearance between the two houses without having any major issues in terms of neighborly. Obviously,
So you own that one too, though, right?
Yeah.
The one to the north, okay.
So it's Mary's old place, right?
it's the old Montgomery. property. Yeah.
No, the one north was Mary Allen.
No, that's 2 houses north.
Oh, that's two. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the one immediately north was the old Montgomery property, George Montgomery. How do I know I dated his daughter?
Were they related?
Who's
I
that?
don't know, as far as this,
No, the Montgomerys and the Allen weren't. They were just good friends. So I guess I'm just saying, how do we move forward?
well, let me find out, kind of you were talking when I was reading, or is that, you're still talking about using the easement, is that correct?
Yes, we'd still be using these, predominantly for golf carts, probably.
But you're gonna be doing the driveway with the.
Yeah, that was what we would propose.
And that would be coming off right at West Shore up the.
Yeah, it'd be coming off where the present gate is.
Okay. I just want to make sure. I thought that's what you said, but I didn't want to.
So this is just a detailed description of what is the easement.
Right.
Just fit in a little bit. Okay.
That's the whole part. Yeah, it wasn't the easiest thing to find.
So you're gonna be the 28 feet. Was the original one further than that? The 28 feet, the same measurement that was on the existing proposal?
This is 18 feet from the road edge.
Right.
He's looking at the bottom one.
Oh, yeah, 28. And here again, we didn't slide it, but we could slide it north if that's more palatable, which would give you more footage on the south, but it would reduce the 20 foot on the north. Now, granted, it's a side yard setback, so you only need 10.
Why wouldn't it do that? I just think it'd be, I don't know,
I can
you
run
could
it.
have more, you'd have more.
Yeah.
To the. I don't know.
Probably the only reason I would say matches because it's kind of centers it, because it's right, so it would be 10 foot from the other house, because that house
Right.
sits. on
That's
that
the only
line.
reason that we didn't, was because,
Because the other house is pretty much on the line.
the other house was basically 0 and this would be 10 and then you're.
Right.
But
But if they ever tear it down and
yeah.
build another
So
one,
we
they're
go
gonna
some
be required
part of
to
that,
10
we could
foot,
go
so it's
5
gonna
or
be
10
30
or-
then, but
Right.
Yeah.
Whatever, I guess I'm just looking for guidance at this point.
I mean, I see if you did move it to the north as well, you would be moving your driveway closer to the egress from
Yeah.
West Circle.
I've got a letter here that I just want to read and it
Sure.
just, we received this, I received this. I guess it doesn't have a date on it. But this was after the last time that we had talked. This is from, well, I'll just read it. Dear Mr. Adams, this letter is to respectfully inform you of our objection to an application that was submitted for a variance pertaining to the above mentioned property. Our understanding of the purpose of the intent of the Board of Zoning Appeals is to provide an avenue for property owners to seek relief from the zoning ordinances due to hardships. Additionally, the BZA ensures the zoning ordinance is implemented in a fair and effective manner and determines if a variance request is justifiable and reasonable. This application submitted for request for variance of development standards states their hardship is being an odd-shaped lot, easement cutting through the lot lines not parallel, topographic of lot and elevations. This is not a hardship, it is merely a description of the lot. Aforementioned matter having been brought before the BZA regarding the property on West Shore Drive was done so without any hardship. The subject, the subject property was offered for purchase with full disclosure of it being unbuildable. Please see attached property listing labeled Exhibit 1. The current owner applicants are fully aware of the fact that the lakefront parcels were unbuildable. They knew this during the property's offering, during their due diligence period, and through the closing process. There's no hardship, no ambiguity. The parcels are unbuildable, period, end of story. I'm at a loss as to why the BZA allowed the applicant's request to be heard on the agenda, as it does not meet any criteria for a relief under the purpose and intent of the BZA. Unbuildable means the subject property is not suitable to erect a structure upon. The applicant's design team's ongoing revisions to the proposal will never change the property's designation from unbuildable to buildable. I am respectfully requesting that the BZA to dismiss the application and determine it's ineligible for construction in the future. It has also been brought to our attention that there is a familial, I don't even know, relationship between the BZA member and the listing agent for the subject property matter at hand. We believe it is only fair for the BZA to make demand upon the same board member to recuse himself from weighing in or, if applicable, being allowed to vote on this matter. And that was sent by Jim Jager, who owns property on the West Shore Circle, I believe.
Who was it?
Jim Jager, Jaeger.
I've never heard of that
Never
name
heard of it.
before in my life.
Let's see who knows.
I think that he owns property on West Shore Circle, but I don't.
Wonder if it's property next to it.
What would be the
Across the
grounds
street
of a
that's not
member
built.
recluse himself?
I'm sorry.
I don't know.
My
Our
sister-in-law.
sister-in-law was
Was the-
selling
Was she
agent.
the listing realtor or was she just your?
I don't, it was Kate Marshall.
She married my big brother.
So, that doesn't give you a conflict.
No, of course it doesn't.
No,
No,
of course not.
and I'm not sure.
So-
You know, I mean.
Well,
Well, your
Yeah,
decision
we- we have
isn't
a lot of
gonna,
Stuff like that around here.
I'll be the first to admit it's a difficult property. I'll admit that. But the thing that I guess I'd like for you to consider is the fact that if you don't grant something on that property is going to be the same way it was since 1965. And it'll never be improved. It'll never be cleaned up. It'll never be anything else because it can't be. And that's one of the biggest reasons that we would like to see that property improved.
I understand it too. I fight with myself over this because on here, as far as a BZA member, and on the plan commission that we write the ordinances. And here we, so to speak, lack of a better word, we bend the ordinances, whatever, due to hardship. But when you have an unbuildable lot that was declared, and I've never dealt with this, I mean, honestly, Lord, of course, what was declared an unbuildable lot one, it does not stop anybody from being able to apply for a variance on anything. I mean, you can do that. Unbuildable lot does not mean it is void from consideration at any time. And as far as what goes forward with that property is still a movement as far as what the BZA looks, that changes it from an unbuildable to a buildable lot.
I was involved in the closing. With all due respect, there was never any mention of it being.
And I've never, where are there unbuildable lot lists?
Yeah.
Is there?
Well, there are unbuildable lots as far as some places where a piece of a little triangle or a sliver of property is on the lake and a road goes through it. And some of it is actually I think Marty.
But I wasn't aware that there was any disclosure on this.
Yeah, that was.
Also, he sent a copy of what was on Zillow advertising the property. And what he highlighted here was the previous owner of the empty lot south of the house operated a boathouse that sold gasoline to boaters. The underground gas tank remains on the small lot to the far south of this large property. The two lakefront parcels with no existing building are considered unbuildable. And that's what he highlighted in the advertisement for it. So, you know, that's what we're facing
Yeah,
too.
we were going to do a stage, what's called a stage 2 test. We're not aware that there are actually in the underground. We've had several people tell us that.
I've heard that rumors, but.
I've heard that rumor myself, but I think the only way you know would be to test it. But here again, if we don't do a project, it'll never
It will
get
never
tested.
be tested.
Yeah.
But
Well,
then-
and again, we can, we can say, well, but, until we look at, and I've expressed what I felt with it
I know, yeah.
before, and I don't see anything that's going to change my mind yet. But, I can't speak for the rest of the board either.
Right.
I guess.
And we can't, or of course, can't do any kind of action because we haven't
Oh, no,
advertised
But,
it.
but I just wanted a little feedback so that I know how to go back to everybody.
When they said the 2 lake lots are considered unbuildable, what 2 lots, they mean this and this where that house already is?
No,
Or-
There's actually 2 lots there, but
there's 3 lots there.
3 lots
Right,
actually.
Oh, I see what I see what I'm
Well, I
thinking.
just
You
do it
own
that
that
way.
other house, but it's not part of,
So there's actually 4 lots.
right. Okay, so that was my, but what were the 2 unbuildable lots that we referred to? It seems like it was the little ones back here, but 2 unbuildable lots.
Our understanding of that was, it wasn't a legal,
Lot.
yeah, I mean, like, you
If you met all the
didn't,
setbacks, you couldn't build one.
yeah, I mean,
Right.
it wasn't like you went to your property tax and it says, this is unbuildable.
Yeah.
And
I think that it was more a general term that you would have to get variances, or you would have, so in other words, don't buy this thinking that this is, you can just plop down a house.
It's gonna cost you a lot of money trying to get where you can build or whatever. I
It wasn't.
understand too, but
to be honest, a lot of the contracts I write say that if the variance is required, the purchaser can back out of it.
Mhm.
See what I mean? But that doesn't make it
Right.
unbuildable. It just means that
right,
they have the option or not.
right.
Well, honestly, where I live, on Forest Place, if somebody tore a house down,
Everything.
everything would be unbuildable. I mean,
Well,
technically.
That's what I was gonna say.
There's no way anymore you could get a house in there that's not too close. to
Right, but
everybody else.
you're making a good point though, because I mean, but as time has went on, I mean, that lot was unbuildable whenever. And we have went the opposite direction as far as what the comprehensive plan in our ordinances has stated, because our minimum lot size has increased to be able to be conforming. And so we're not going the other way. That would be a more convenient for this lot to be buildable on. I mean, it's getting more, not use the terms lightly, but to say unbuildable lot, it's actually becoming even
I don't know.
more undersized than
Right, and I'm just
comparison,
saying,
what it
our
is.
requirements now for minimum lot size for a house.
Oh, yeah.
We've got stricter and
Yeah.
stricter, and they're bigger and bigger. And
Because-
Is it the lots too small, or is it the stuff?
Both.
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 I
I mean, you've got several issues with that, when you're talking so much that, you're talking about, your, even your impervious and pervious.
Impervious, yeah.
Right,
Right.
and, but all you can do is
You're
make
right.
it better, but you can't make it compliable.
Right.
So everything that you're looking at has to have a variance.
Right.
I mean, just to say that you can build on it is
So I guess.
a chore right now. I mean, I'm not to say how I'd vote or whatever,
Right,
anybody.
It's just really
I'm just-
difficult to get.
The
it.
difficulty that you'd have to go through just to be able now to, you're gonna lay out a plan. And you have no idea. I mean, you're going through the expense of trying to figure out how you can put a home on this
And I guess
unbuildable lot.
that's where I'm
And
at.
then you're facing, variances as far as your setbacks, everything else as far as your egress, as far as, I mean, it's just been piled up for
So
you.
probably that's why we're here, is like, I mean, I can tell you that whatever we do, we're gonna do a very nice job. I mean, but if it's something that you're not gonna allow, then we just need to know that. We just, you know what I mean? Because, I mean, I would love to do something nice on there. I would love to do something that's gonna be that's not gonna be a sea of concrete. Because that's basically what it is right now. It's concrete from one end to the other end.
Right.
So we do have the other home. I mean, depending on what we do with this is dependent on what we do with that. We're just kind of at the point where that house needs a new roof. I don't know what to do with the roof because I don't know where we are with this.
Do you guys absolutely want to keep these two lots separate? You wouldn't, you know, like maybe combine something on here because that's an existing house. You know, this is the thing about the ordinance, you know, something's already there. You can tear it down and put something in its place. But then, in this lot maybe becomes more like you extend then into this lot. I don't mean to be designing your house here, but where
That would require variance.
it would. I'm
And-
just trying to get a house.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
Well, and I love the house. I love that house that's there. I love the cellar. It's the coolest cellar ever. I mean, you go down there and it's just like
I love it.
history just.
I love old houses.
Do you know what I mean? And, in the part that they added on, talked about it's a foot from the road.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we just want a direction. I mean, our plan was if we did this, then we would do the home here. We probably would then not tear that one down and build it all over again. We would remodel it to some extent, but we probably wouldn't put in tear down like they're doing and build a huge home there. We probably wouldn't do that. We keep it more the size it is, maybe lift the roof because when you go out, the roof is, and you can't get under the roof. To see out the windows, you got to sit down. But we just need some direction. I mean, we want you guys to be happy with it. I don't want to be anybody's pain in the butt. I don't want to be anybody, I don't want to be that person.
If we didn't, we wouldn't be here.
But we just need some direction.
I understand too. It's just a hard position to be in on both sides of this. I mean, if we were sitting at Cafe Max or whatever, drinking coffee and talking about, how nice it would be to have a beautiful house sitting right there compared to that concrete slab and whatever it is, there's not a person in town that wouldn't say it's great. But at the same time, when you're sitting here in this position, you can't use that what you'd like to see as a guideline because we've got rules that we have to go by and we have to actually find the actual hardship that's not created by the one that wants it, but it's actually created by the property itself. But then you're not putting a house that would comply on that property, so then that creates another thorn in.
I think it's hard too, because ordinances are sometimes, in my mind, kind of conflicting. One of the ones that bothers me is like if you tore this house down, right? And you built on the same footprint. If you built it any taller, you'd have to come to us and ask for a variance. But if you knocked it down and you made it bigger, you could build it 35 feet tall and not ask for a height variance. Like I always wonder why?
Right.
Like, why is the variance like that? It must have been some reason. And, because I sit here enough and you kind of learn these, it doesn't hit me that much anymore. But if I were somebody sitting out there, kidding me, if I make it a foot bigger on one side, I can build it 35 feet tall. I mean, it doesn't.
Yeah,
seem to make
and that's
sense.
what they said.
Or this house, you can knock it down, it's a foot from the road, if you put it on the exact foot, you could build this house a foot from the road.
Yeah.
Like, really?
Right.
So there's a lot that's very, very frustrating about it.
But there's several other people that's involved as far as when this ordinance is made.
No, I know that, I'm just saying, but the reality is when you're sitting over there and you don't deal with the ordinances all the time, you're trying to figure out how it works and.
But the whole problem with that, if you build it on the same footprint, can't go any higher, is exactly what we ran into.
Yeah, I know.
And what we dealt with forever.
I know it so well.
And because then
Because they
everybody
didn't
just
need a
wants to go
variance,
up to
they
that,
built it.
Oh, yeah.
on this small footprint. And that's crazy. And
No,
and that's the whole idea of,
I mean, you
That
actually
is
have an
if you-
example.
if you want to use this, you can't make it 35 feet, because we would prefer if you rebuild that you try to make some exceptions, take it away from the
Right.
road.
But understand that when all they have to do is make it like a foot bigger all the way around and suddenly they could go up. I mean,
No,
it
they'd
wouldn't
have,
work in
No,
this
no, no.
spot, but I'm just
But
saying.
they would still
Yeah.
require a variance.
Not if you don't build on the same footprint.
Yeah, but you still have setbacks.
but
Well,
you
you have setback. but-
So you still have to have a variance.
Maybe this is a bad example.
That's what made it non-conforming to begin with.
Right.
And that's the
yeah.
only reason they can build it back without the variance, because you're putting on the same footprint without requiring a variance to have the house exactly what it was.
Right,
It didn't make it any less
yeah.
And then I'll ask you, what did you, when you bought this property, what was your expectations of that lot?
I was worried about the fuel tank.
I'm sorry?
I was worried about the fuel tank, but our expectations, I don't really think we had any expectations. I mean, it wasn't like, oh, we're gonna buy this, because we're gonna build a house, we're gonna buy this, not gonna, I mean, what it really is just, it was COVID, we found the house and we made it quick, it was like, I mean, they made us bid on it within like, what? So. I don't think-
So the fact that on the sales thing, saying it was unbuildable, that didn't affect your decision to buy it?
No, I really, to me, it was more about what we want to buy a piece of property here at Culver. We looked at two other, Wawasee and other lakes, and we wanted to be here. Because my son-in-law, they have a house here, and it'd be more convenient for us.
Port, so
Yeah.
it's
So-
in between.
So we wanted to be here, so that, I mean, the house, when we made the decision, yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody's pressuring us, the realtor.
Yeah, someone pushing the wall.
I think
They wait for the wall, she'll be fine.
The fact that you guys want to get rid of all that impervious surface too and deal with, you know, the environmental aspects of it. You know, I've been a 35-year member of the Environmental Council, and that means a lot to me. And, you know, I know you guys can do it right. I mean, Danny, you're in the trucking business. You know all about fuel and leaks and all that. I'm sure
We
you've
have
dealt
fuel
with that
tanks.
before.
We
Yeah,
have
you have
fuel
fuel
tanks
tanks. so,
in the
yeah,
ground.
so, But,
You have to
you
be
know,
very,
right.
you have to deal.
So I guess, like,
That's
people
all right.
wonder, are we beating the dead horse or should we slide it and bring it back?
I'm only one vote. I can't tell you whether you are or not. And we're not really
We're trying to get a feel. for-
at liberty to discuss what we would vote prior to whatever it is. We're not at liberty to, I mean, advice is one thing, but it's actually your decision whether you want to keep trying to till you win or whether you want to.
And we do have.
Well,
Not-
I keep
not-
trying until we actually go to funding the facts,
Yeah, I
is what
mean-
it basically boils down to.
I mean, it's,
I mean,
We don't want to do that, if, you know.
I know, and, you know,
If there's a palatable situation, I know Dan's was very honest, and I appreciate that. But, so, I guess I'm just trying to figure out where to go.
You know, it's interesting. So I look at this doesn't bother me terribly. That's, you know, that's my reaction. I still go back to, although I love old houses, and I've always renovated old. So when you use a really cool basement, I'm like, ooh, and you know, like you either love old houses, and that means something to you. Most people are like, oh, really cool basement.
I know, I'm
I
like,
totally know what she's
you
talking
would
about.
love this.
That's cool. You know, so then I'm like, oh, it's not gonna be cool to renovate an old house, like, but you might get more play, you know, making this really a lot. You know, so you're not coming into the state of much. I don't know. I mean, that's.
no, Chuck,
We talked about tearing the house down, but it really is it's over, what was it built, 19th or 18th or, I mean, it's like.
In the 1800s?
Think about around 1900.
Yeah, no, it was 1890.
Yeah, I was gonna say right around 1900,
So, I mean, it's-
1890, 1895.
I really,
There was on that old on the way.
Oh, yeah, there's some over on the east side.
And it just so happens
Hey.
that we found out that my nephew's grandfather, who has the heart-shaped thing, leave all the stones.
Dave Burns.
Yeah.
Stone in my house.
Oh,
Yes, because they used to live right by you,
Stone.
right?
all-
I don't
all-
know, you probably don't, you'll have to show us, because he said he lived right by you guys, his grandfather,
I
right
think,
by where your houses are.
I think Mickey actually worked for him at one time, and then Mickey.
Burns.
laid off.
he's the biggest stone, he did all the stone.
You know,
I'll be there.
actually, he actually lived in town where that new house is,
Just south.
Oh, okay,
just south of the church.
and maybe his
Lake
family
Street.
lived there, because he talked about the railroad tracks being back there.
Yeah, they go terrible looking for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
And
They-
your brother told us he was called the Birdman.
Yeah. That's when he worked at the academy.
When he worked at the academy.
He rode around a blue Jeep. They called him the Birdman to give everybody a bird all the time.
Smoking a
He had,
cigar.
he had a sign on the side of his truck after he
I'm gonna
retired from
keep
the academy,
talking.
after he started doing all his stone work around the lake. He had a sign on his truck that said, "I'll be there Tuesday." He was a character. I had a good time with him.
Dan, we're.
Okay.
Sorry.
And
So just give us direction. I have a house that is falling apart and I just,
I think Mr. Osborne and I talked about it. I think if you combine it into one lot and remodeled your present house or added something onto that might be the best way to do it, rather than trying to put a separate house on that lot.
but I have a feeling that from everything I've heard in all these meetings I sat in, we're gonna end up in a lot of the same situations.
Well, it's
It's existing. Right now, you're looking for something.
there's no house at all on those lots right now. That's one of the problems.
How would you feel about a roof type,
Connection.
I screens on the side.
I can't hear you.
Well, no, the way I talk to Chuck and read the ordinance, as long as you have walls and the foundation and a roof, you're okay.
Well, the first step would be making it one lot, first of all.
Yeah, you're not gonna be able to cross a lot line.
Well, so if it's one person, I mean, it's, I don't know. how that works.
You got two parcels.
I
but you need
And very
one.
truthfully, and I've been trying to be truthful as possible, I cannot see myself voting to build a house on that lot. I just do not feel that lot is, especially since there's no home there. It's not big enough to,
There was something there.
but it wasn't a home. It was a marina.
Dinosaurs used to drink.
And I think there's all kinds of problems there, which, and that, in the long run, it doesn't matter if you build it as something, but that's gonna be a deterrent for your property to the north of it. Just having a gas tank there or whatever the use you make of that property. So, but that's just my opinion. And like I said, I'm just one person on this board.
You're saying you're leaning more towards consolidating with the present structure.
What I'm saying, I would be more open to that than building a house on that lot now.
That's well said.
And that's-
I was trying to think how to word it myself.
I think Danny said that the very first time you guys were here.
He did, too.
Implied it, because I remember, we didn't really understand that, and then, I don't know how you knew they owned the other house or whatever, but you were like, I would
Because it showed that they had
buy
two
them or
lots.
something, you said something along those
Because they
lines.
still lived in one house and they were trying to build on the other. I mean, it was pretty obvious they had two. But,
Okay, we need to move on here.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks for waiting around.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Even coming, we had one or two cases, you know, right? Yeah.
Any new
Yep.
stuff coming up?
Don't be caught out after curfew.
Chuck, any new stuff coming up we need to know about?
Oh, God, don't do that. We just tabled two things, right? We'll see, right? We do.
Yeah. Just table this one.
Not anything that I'm aware of.
But
He's
just
not
so-
saying there's not anything new coming in, but
So what happened? Okay, so can you, I'm sorry.
no.
We asked him.
I was gonna,
So
but
what height did they get down to?
it's under 35 today.
Yeah, it's under 35.
How far under? Like 2 inches? You know, I was gonna
Oh,
say,
yeah, it was probably right at 2 inches, wasn't it?
It had to be because those windows are on the floor now, right?
But they have to get new windows.
Well, they're gonna have to be tempered.
Because they're on, because.
Because it's close to the floor,
Right,
Oh, yeah.
I just get new windows.
but they're not that a big expensive deal for changing
And-
those, but still. And on dry, it's not, for that matter.
And
I
his,
wish nothing bad on them.
his father-in-law withdrew his, is he gonna, is he
No,
done?
he
or-
hasn't withdrawn it. We're just, he's gonna bring it at the next meeting, correct?
Maybe.
Maybe, that's the intent, is come to the next meeting.
Is he making any changes from what he's,
We don't even know that, do we?
He was talking about making changes in the.
because we didn't vote
He
on
hasn't
it,
addressed
but
anything.
he doesn't make any changes.
I remember you told him the first
Since-
time he
since
came
we're-
from. I
we've been
never- I
tabled or
was,
whatever.
I just about busted out laughing. He said, you made a bad investment.
Yeah.
I'll never forget you saying
What's that?
Dan told me, he said, you made a bad investment.
No.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, and then.
if you remember right, when Dan said, I mean, we're done. But, yeah, close the meeting. I made motion, adjourn.
Okay.
Okay,
Hey,
but, oh, let me say.
Dinsmore left that guy
Yeah.
that was that architect or whatever left that here.